Hello, dear friends, welcome to our YouTube channel, USA Football Zone, latest football highlights. A 4-1 defeat to Argentina in Buenos Aires broke their streak. It wasn't just a defeat, it was a humiliation, the worst qualifying defeat in Brazil's history. It was a result that sent shockwaves from the Monumental to the Maracanã. A scoreline that felt like a misprint, 4-1, the birthright of a generation, the dream of a World Cup, has suddenly been engulfed in chaos and crisis, and as the smoke clears, we must ask the most terrifying questions. Where was the aura? Where was the fight? Where was Brazil? This is a national inquiry. This is the post-mortem of a team that has lost its identity. The yellow jersey is stained not with mud or grass, but with shame, and it happened on their opponent's field. A joyous celebration for the world champions, a nightmare for the five-time winners. Coach Dorival Jr. has already apologized to the fans, admitting that his team started very badly and finished second in every category. But an apology won't fix it. It was a structural collapse, a complete and utter system failure. The whistle blew, and for a moment, it felt like any other Super Classico, exciting, dangerous, the air filled with history and hatred, but we were naive. We were clinging to a past that no longer existed. The first sign that this was not a fight for equality, but a public execution, came just 4 minutes in. Julian Alvarez, they call him the Spider, and he spread a web of complete confusion in the Brazilian box. An easy ball through the defense, a defense that was nowhere to be seen, and a brilliant finish over Bento, 1-0. This goal was not the result of Argentine talent, although much of that could come from, but rather the result of the Brazilians' complete collapse. It was the first crack in the dam, and the floodgates were about to open. Before Brazil could process the first goal, the second had happened. Just 8 minutes into the opening game, Enzo Fernandez made it 2-0 in the 12th minute. The World Cup's best young player, now a general in Chelsea's midfield, had acres of space to tap in an easy cross. It was like a training ground. It was too easy. At this point, apart from the injured Lionel Messi, the Argentine players were no longer celebrating with surprise. They were celebrating with hope. They saw what we had seen, a Brazilian team that was scared, scattered, and playing like strangers who had met in the tunnel. They were being badly beaten, not even getting along. Monumental was electrifying. Noisy and jubilant, a team built on the back of Brazil's incompetence. Then, a glimmer of hope, a small, disturbing and ultimately tragic moment that made the final result all the more painful. In the 26th minute, a very unexpected mistake by Cristian Romero gave Matheus Cunha an attacking opportunity. The striker, one of the few Brazilian players who showed fighting spirit, capitalized on the mistake and scored 2-1. For a second, you thought, okay, let's get started. This is the Brazil we know. They bend, but they don't break. The comeback has begun, but it was a false dawn. It was a mirage in our desert of despair. That hope lasted exactly 11 minutes. As Brazil began to recover, Argentina closed the door, locked it and set the house on fire. In the 37th minute, Alexis McAllister restored the 2-goal lead with a beautiful volley, converting Enzo Fernandez's perfectly weighted pass into a goal. 3-1, that moment was nerve-wracking. It wasn't just a goal, it was a reaction. Argentina was telling Brazil, you can't be on this field with us. The halftime whistle seemed like an act of mercy. The second half was a formality, a slow march towards the necessary result. Brazil had made changes, but the system was deeply broken. The defeat was psychological, and then, to put the final, decorative nail in the coffin, the ultimate humiliation, Giuliano Simeone, son of the great Diego Simeone, came off the bench and scored the 4th goal from an impossible angle in the 71st minute. 4-1. It was his first international goal, a historic moment for him, a historic humiliation for Brazil. The game ended not with a bang, but with a bang. Argentina had qualified for the World Cup in style. Brazil had to walk through the rubble of their worst qualifying defeat. Who is to blame for this disaster? The answer is everyone. It was a colossal failure. Let's start with strategy, or rather the complete lack thereof. Brazil played without a midfield. It was a huge void, a black hole where players should have been. The Argentine trio of Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, and Rodrigo de Paul didn't just play in Brazil's midfield. They used it as if it wasn't there. They behaved like passengers on a speeding train passing their station. There was no pressure on the ball, no defensive structure, no communication. It was a masterclass in the Argentine midfield engine. against a group of players who completely lost, then we have to talk about the people, and let's be clear. Let's talk about Vinicius Jr. This is a player who carries the hopes of a nation, a Ballon d'Or candidate, a superstar at the biggest club in the world, and in this game he was a ghost. He seemed more interested in the sideshow, the controversy, the drama, than in influencing the match. You can't wear the jersey of Pelé, Zico, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and play with such a lack of defensive effort and commitment. It's a non-negotiable. The weight of that jersey isn't just to create moments of magic. It's to carry the responsibility of a country. Tonight, that responsibility felt very heavy, and finally, we get to the man in the dugout, Dorival Jr. He was appointed in January 2024 to bring stability after a year as interim coach. But after that result, Brazil's heaviest defeat in World Cup qualifying history, his position was in tatters and he was sacked just days later. He apologized after the match, saying the responsibility was entirely his, and he was right. What was the game plan? The team seemed scared, unprepared for the intensity of the Super Clásico and tactically naive. A lack of class is one thing, a lack of thought is another. Both are inexcusable. This was not just a bad night. It was the result of a period of instability, in which Brazil had lacked a clear identity for years, for decades. Teams have lost to Brazil in the tunnel. They were defeated before the ball was kicked. They won only on the aura, the myth of Joga Bonito. The rhythm, the arrogance, the 5 stars on their chests. After tonight, that aura is gone. It's all over. We haven't just seen a defeat. We've seen the end of an identity. We haven't seen the Brazilian national team, but a team of a few elite individuals. We saw a team of talented players, not a cohesive team. The most frightening thing is that it was bound to happen. The historic home defeat to Argentina in the first qualifying round at the end of 2023 was a warning. This 4-1 defeat is proof of that. The reigning world champions Argentina are now setting the standard in South America, playing with a confidence and unity that Brazil can only dream of. They did it without Messi. What does that say about their strengths, and what about Brazil's weaknesses now? Let's be clear, despite this humiliation, the extended format of the World Cup meant that Brazil qualified automatically, finishing 4th in the standings. They avoided the ultimate humiliation of the playoffs. But for a country like Brazil, finishing 4th is itself a historic failure. In the end, the feeling of being hanging by a thread was not about the math on the table. It was about the team spirit. It was about seeing one of the world's greatest footballing giants so small, so weak, so completely shattered. The question now is not whether Brazil can win the World Cup. It is whether they can remain competitive without deep, introspective changes from top to bottom. This result should be devastating. It should be a wake-up call. Because if it weren't, the decline in reputation would have been even more spectacular. That's my opinion, and I'm angry, disappointed, and frankly, heartbroken. But I want to know what you think. Am I overreacting, or is this the kind of cruel, humiliating wake-up call that Brazilian football desperately needs? Who do you blame? The players? The coaches? The entire federation? Let me know your honest, unvarnished opinions in the comments below. It sounds like a group therapy session is needed, and if you want to stay with me on this painful journey of rebuilding, be sure to like and subscribe. It's going to be a long one.